Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here to review Batman Nightfall Part 1. The most exciting thing about this movie, honestly, for me, is that Catman was involved in this story because I am a big Catman fan. Immediately, I was to go on and say that this movie was great just because of that. But also, this movie was actually exciting. This movie was actually to be very well built up and had a lot of more interesting and also kind of surprises within inside the story, which I did enjoy. So we'd make our way also to have this movie give us more unique things like Batman seeking out therapy and having characters like Azrael also to be used with the Bat family. Uh, in this story, we actually have Tim Drake being Robin instead of either Damien or Grayson. But I think at some point Grayson will come back as a Nightwing or something like that at some point in the story, because there has to eventually kind of be that anyways. But all of this movie is to go on and build up and do is to give us Bane's origin and eventually him coming to Gotham and breaking Batman's back. That is the big point of this story, as well as also this story is a very iconic Batman story, as well as there being a number of other ones that I'm sure people will call out to me because there's a lot of them. And also, like, of course, there's so many of them. And it's so weird that they haven't been pushing out a lot more Batman animated pieces because clearly they can, or they could have. Like, there was a lot of times where they did a lot of more weaker ones, like Gotham by Gaslights, or The Long Halloween was a good story, but it was very long and drawn out and wasn't exciting as this one is. So it's nice to go on and have them, if they're going to put out another Batman animated film, that it has a lot more action going on, where that was more of like the detective side of Batman, and it was just so just long and drawn out and just not as um, interesting to figure out what the whole mystery of who was going to be the villain by the end of that, because it was just like, come on already, like, this is boring. So because they were teasing it for a number of movies, and I'm just like, I don't care anymore. So Batman Nightfall gives us Bane's origin, where he was born in a prison and eventually his mother dies in this said prison. So Bane goes on and gets this magazine of Gotham and is to read it cover to cover, looks at Thomas and Bruce Wayne as the face of Gotham. And so eventually, when Bane goes on and makes his way to Gotham after he's to conquer the prison, he realizes how the magazine doesn't match up to real life. That, if anything, now that he realizes how drastically different Gotham is, then Bane is to be like, well, I'm going to take everything that my mother told me about strength and survival and conquering and use that towards Gotham, to where I want to have Gotham match like how I saw it in that magazine. So as that is going on and happening, and having Bane take out like almost a good chunk of the five families, eventually bringing explosives into the Arkham Asylum, to then have Batman be so crazy busy with all of these threats, like Catman, like the Mad Hatter that starts out first, and eventually starting to also use characters that have been lesser used in so many other animated stuff in the past, like Firefly, or uh, also characters like Zaz, who I am to go on and see in the Arkham games was to be kind of like this Easter eggish like character that goes on, and every time he kills somebody, he cuts into them and marks their deaths onto his body. Uh, we also even briefly have like Mr. Freeze in this movie also, which was kind of cool. Even though it's like, well, yeah, like he ends up getting taken out so quickly, but at least he's here. So, like, if anything, I honestly would love it if any of the new Batman movies would have Mr. Freeze as a villain, because I find him to be the most kind of interesting of how Batman is going to take on a threat like that. But anyways, so uh, we also, besides Batman's story about how he's driven without sleep for 2 days, how Batman is trying to do everything on his own. He even fires Tim Drake by the end of this piece, and even when Batman is tempted to seek the help of others, he's pushing away from them and going on uh to realize that at some point, like, there's going to get to a breaking point, and how everybody is going on and starting to see how tired and weary he is, and how, if anything, he's not being the normal Batman that people know of or are familiar with, and how Batman is almost getting into some darker, dirtier tactics to almost like he pummels almost Zaz to almost death. And Montoya goes on and watches this happen. She's like, "Oh my god! Like, you're starting to end up being just like all the villains that you fight and you chase after." Because Batman is just getting exhausted with consistently having to fight these people, endlessly fighting these people, and he never catches a break. So, if anyways, that's probably why he's getting to more extreme tactics, almost close to it, because this is the song that never ends for him. And how what he's doing probably isn't good enough, and Bane is telling him that by the end of the film, and how he's failed, and how he's to go on and realize that he needs to be put in his place by the end of the film, to where Bane is to find out who he is so easily and come to his home and and conquer over him, because someone has to. So we go on to this film, and also, besides Batman, we have a little bit going on with Azrael, who comes from the Arkham games. If you guys are really looking for a Arkham kind of filling of the gap, this movie will do it for you. This movie is also a little bit gory, so if those of you that want to go on and make this kind of a family adventure, I don't know. Like, we have like the lobbing off of certain heads at certain points in the beginning of this piece. There is a little bit of blood in certain places that is like a little bit more like a little bit risky, but if anything, besides kind of like the early parts of this movie, I think everything else is like, there is some kind of like the poking of the eyes and crushing of heads, but like, yeah, like, just kind of proceed with caution. Specifically, if you, I would just say, just don't have kids probably watch this. It's not for the young audience. But anyways, especially with the grading of this movie, anyways. So, or the rating of it. But yeah, but if you're looking for an Arkham substitute, this will fill that bill. It is really good. I really liked it. So this one, yeah, great. I loved it. It was awesome. Of course, KnightFall is really impactful Batman story anyways, so it's good that they decided to do this because I'm like, wow, like what a change of pace compared to all the other stuff that they had before. That it felt like they didn't really care about it. It was just something to just chuck a product out. This didn't feel like that for once. So, with that said, I think it's about that time to just break this movie down as best as I can. Uh, there's a lot of times where I had to really do my homework and research to figure out things. Because not all these characters were listed, or there was some stuff where I'm just like, okay, who exactly is this character? Because there was the character in the prison that was like the warden, and I was like, okay, does he have an exact name? What? Yeah, all I figured out in the credits was his name was the warden, so that's what I went with. So, yeah, there's certain characters what I wanted the exact name of, and I couldn't figure it out. So I'm just like, I just got more and more frustrated. Um, I had to go on and take like keywords that people said, and eventually kind of research that also because I'm familiar with certain characters, but I wasn't familiar with stuff like Naja exactly. But then when eventually I found, I'm like, oh yeah, Naja is King Snake. So I'm like, oh okay. Um, so that took a while to kind of Google that and search that. So yeah, like there was some stuff where I had to go on and really figure out how to write off these characters. So with that said, let's go into this movie. Let's break it all down, and just get out of here because this is like an hour and 11-minute movie, anyways. So it's either people are going to check this out or people aren't going to be bothered. I would recommend people checking this out. If you are to go on and be a Batman fan, I think this is a much I think this is a must watch anyways, but it's actually a good piece. I thought it was actually worth your time. So definitely go into it, watch and enjoy it. If you, I don't know if this is one of those premium ones or if it's an HBO Max release. I didn't really pay attention to that because I have other means of watching this anyways. If you want to go through the same avenue that I went to, if you were to be a mobile device user, if you have a Google Play Store, you can find apps like Zelifonic, Zelivonic, or Klede Plus, Klede Plus, and watch this movie for free. Uh, or unless if you have HBO Max or wherever the heck that this is to be playing in, anyways, then check that out there. If you want to put out money to watch this thing, then that's your financial affordability to do that. Whatever you want to do, this movie's actually worth it. So check that out there. So, let's get into the beginning of this. So, we have this truck driver that is human trafficking people in this truck. That is selling them to these guys that I will call the Snake King Gang and or the King Snake Gang. I think King Snake does have like the ghost dragons because I did read some Robin stuff. But if anything, when looking at the ghost dragons, when googling the images of them, it looked drastically different than what these characters look like. So I'm like, okay, is this the ghost dragons? I wish stuff was kind of much more helping us understand who these people are, because that's the biggest problem with DC is like they just have to have you just try and figure stuff out, or you need to just be a hardcore comic book fan to get the references of anything, and it's annoying. Believe me, Lanterns really used to be annoying just because of that. And I wish you would stop. I wish it would be easier to understand, but it's not. They just think that you're some hardcore comic book fan that has to know everything. It's annoying. It really is. So, anyways, the human trafficker is to talk to these King Snake gang members, and they're asking uh the trafficker, like, well, hey, like, does this truck trailer, does it have air? Because the last time the people in the container, they suffocated. And the guy's like, well, yeah, I made one mistake and now I have to be asked every time about this. So the trafficker goes on and tells the lead gang member, there's like, well, yeah, I've made all the provisions, like, believe me, like, this truck is fine. So all of a sudden, as they're negotiating things, all of a sudden they hear a rustling and like, hey, what the heck is that? Is that the bat? All of a sudden we start to see that people are getting nabbed in the shadows. Uh, people are starting to get killed. Flaming swords are going into people's chests. Like, what the heck is going on? This isn't the bat. All of a sudden, we come to find out of one of these containers is to be Azrael, and he's going on and starting to kill people. I'm like, okay, this is a different way to start out this movie. Cool. Like, immediately when I saw this character, I immediately knew it was Azrael. I'm like, oh, right. This is different. So Azrael goes on and he jumps on top of these cars of these gang members trying to get away. He slices through the top of the car and slices through somebody's face, and then through another guy's head. I'm like, oh yeah, get some gruesome gruel, get some goriness going, yeah. I just freaking nutted because of that. Yeah, it was freaking awesome. So the gang leader and the trafficker, like, they're going on and they're hiding away because they know they're gonna probably get killed like all these other footless soldier guys are too. So the leader goes on and grabs the trafficker, like, well, hey, like, were you the one to kind of lead us to this? And the guy was like, how do you think that I was gonna know about any of this? So the leader goes on and gets grabbed by Azrael, as Azrael has these daggers on his arms that are also to have flames on the tip on them. And as Azrael stabs in this guy, now his face is completely on fire and melting his skin. I'm like, wow. And then as Azrael makes his way to the trafficker and talking about that his cult of serpents will be punished. So yeah, this is the king snakes people. That's why calling them serpents and everything like that. So the trafficker is pleading and promising that he'll change his ways. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we have Batman's grappling hook that grabs onto Azrael's hand. And then eventually Batman jumps down and tells Azrael to stay down. So Batman seems to know that this guy is some kind of vigilante, and Azrael is trying to do the right thing, but also he's doing it in a way that Batman doesn't like. So, if anything, there's kind of a reason why Batman is trying to stop Azrael here. So, the trafficker runs off and eventually hops over this fence, and Azrael and Batman chase after the trafficker. As the trafficker jumps over this fence, Azrael just cuts with his arm daggers, goes on and slices through this fence, continues after the trafficker. And as Batman and Azrael are rustling, and all of a sudden the trafficker gets hit by this truck driver, goes bouncing off. The truck driver gets out of his car and it's like, oh my god, someone call 911. Like, oh my god, this guy is probably going to end up being dead. So all of a sudden Azrael is to look at him wrestling at Batman, is to look at all the people he has gone on to kill. And then all of a sudden Azrael completely stops and takes off his mask. He's like, you have to help me. Because Azrael is returned back into Jean Paul Valley. And Valley doesn't know what the heck has gone on. It kind of feels like he's either blacked out or he doesn't know what he's doing. So he's pleading for Batman to help him, and Batman will, because he always likes to go on and try to get people who have kind of lost their way to just be like, okay, like, if I can go on and I can help this person, I definitely will. Because they have the skills to be able to go on and become a good person. It's just that they were misguided. So we then cut to years ago in Santa Pisca. This is to be a Piene d'Oro prison. So this is to be the prison that Bane is to be born in. So Bane's mother doesn't exactly have a name here, because I looked this up and I couldn't figure it out. What exactly Bane's mother's name was. Plus, also, I didn't think that there was much of Bane's name because they have to nickname him something because they don't actually give him a name here. So Bane's mother goes on and is in prison delivering Bane, and so the child ends up getting delivered, and they say that it's a boy, and the mother apologizes. So now Bane's mother goes on and makes her way to the warden and talks about how she is to pay for her husband's sins. And how Bane's mother is to go on and say that things are unfair, and how the warden is like, well, life rarely is fair. So again, I'm still kind of assuming that this woman is actually to be King Snake's wife, is what I'm assuming, because I thought I heard from some story somewhere that Bane's father was to actually be King Snake. That's probably why there's a reference here of King Snake in the beginning of this piece, anyways. I'm hoping that's right, but I'm not quite sure. Let me know in the comments below if you're to be comic book readers and you can correct me on that, because that's fine. Because yeah, like at some point there's to be some kind of comic book knowledge that I'm not really completely 100% aware of. So now, as Bane's mother makes her way back to her cell, we have all of a sudden these inmates that are, or wait, uh, so as Bane's mother is going on and uh, and going back into prison and this and that, we have these two inmates that are wrestling over food, and then all of a sudden we come to find that as one of the bigger inmates steal from the smaller one, all of a sudden the food ends up going missing. So now we see that a lot of time has passed, and Bane is to be now a young child. So Bane was to have been the one that just steal that food from that inmate, and so he starts crawling through the prison cell like a spider to make his way back to his mother to hand her this biscuit, and Bane's mother will not accept the food and say that Bane handing her this food is a sign of weakness or pity, and she won't accept that from him. And if anything, Bane should go on and eat this food because his reason for being in prison is to survive and to dominate over others. And that he should be strong and show no mercy. And so, and that this is the way of the world. And specifically, that's the way of the world here in prison. That it's to go on and you have to be the scariest guy in the prison, or otherwise you're gonna live a very short life. So we come to find that Bane is to actually want to educate himself. He loves to read, which I find to be rather interesting. We also come to, I think, finding that Bane is to know a number of different languages, so that's quite interesting. I guess if you have nothing to do for your whole entire life of being in prison, like, I guess the only thing that you can be left to do is read. So Bane goes on and sees this guy with a cart that gives him books from time to time. And so the inmate that is to be the guy delivering books, kind of ends up being like this really creepy old man. And eventually we'll come to find that this guy might have some weird, crappy motives, because immediately when I saw him put his hand over Bane's knee, I'm like I know where this is going. Like, I've seen something like this happen in my own life before, so yeah. I know where this is heading. So So Bane is talking to this inmate, and so he's like, "Well, hey, the only reading material that we have new is to actually be this Gotham magazine. So you go on and you read this, so we can uh, learn about Gotham City." Uh, the inmate goes on and says that it's a place about beautiful women and handsome men and skyscrapers as high as the eye can see. It's a place where boys become men. So So this is a magazine called Gotham Today, and so Bane starts reading it. Uh, also, the inmate goes on and asks about Bane's mother, and he says that she's sick. Eventually, we'll come to find that that sickness is to lead to Bane's mother's death, and that eventually this same inmate will creepingly try to comfort Bane, and eventually he'll take him out with a book and crush his face to death with a book, which is like, wow, it's pretty gory. So again, yeah, this movie's definitely not for kids. So as Bane now is reading up on this magazine, and he's so excited that he has something new to read. Uh, Bane's mother asks Bane why exactly he's reading, and it's basically knowledge is power, but he goes in and says because knowledge is strength, and strength is survival, and so as Bane is trying to read up on Thomas Wayne in Gotham City and how he's a powerful man, at some point Bane has maybe idolized Thomas Wayne and wants to become him someday. And if only he could get outside these walls and grow uh, and burst free of all this, then Bane could be someone like Thomas Wayne. So Bane goes on and promises that Gotham will bow to him and that Gotham will be his someday or theirs someday. And then all of a sudden he turns to his mother and he realizes that she then dies shortly thereafter that. So the inmate comes back with the cart full of books and it's a say to Bane, it's like, well, yeah, I heard about your mother. Like, it seems that you're all alone now. So, creepy. So the inmate starts to come into the cell, and shortly thereafter, they hand over the knee thing. Here's where Bane goes on and drops the inmate and starts bashing with this book to death. We have a guard and a warden that comes into the cell, and shortly thereafter that, Bane ends up just getting so angry that he even attacks the warden and rips a piece of his ear off. And the warden pushes him off and say that this is not a boy anymore. He's a demon, a bane of all of existence. And now we're going to go on and place him in the Cavidad Akuro, Oscuro, a basically hole. Imagine, like, if you were put into a well that you can't get out of. That's basically what Bane was put into. Uh, if you guys had gone on and seen the last Christian Bale movie, where Christian Bale has to figure out a way to like hop from these things to get out of this like underground prison thing, like that is the visual that I'm queuing up here. But Bane just had a well. There was no way for him to easily just uh hop from certain things to get out of there. No, like if anything, there was a lot of times where water was coming into that well, and then he would just get to the cell top of it. just because of how much water was coming in there at certain times. So Bane gets uh put into this well of a hole. And so the warden at least gives him this Gotham magazine that he's read so much about to kind of keep him warm at night. But the warden explains to Bane about how a lot of people don't tend to survive in this hole for very long. And if anything, he's assuming that Bane is going to have a short existence in it. So, as this magazine is to be thrown to Bane, and then all of a sudden there's water that starts to appear within this hole. All of a sudden there's this weird spiral that goes in uh, with Bane into this hole. And so this water keeps coming in and coming out, and eventually Bane continues to survive. At first, he used to go on and have trouble trying to get to rats to eat them because that's his only nourishment. But then, the further along, Bane starts doing push ups and continues to look at the magazine as a way to drive him out of here, to drive to his freedom, to remember the words that his mother had told him about being Thomas Wayne one day. And so Bane gets a lot better at grabbing at rats, ripping off the heads of them and eating them, to the point where Bane, out of everybody, has survived the longest in this hole, to where they kept him in it as long as they had him still be alive in it for. So they finally, after a long stretch of time, drag Bane out because they want to use him as a lab rat, as an experiment. And so after everybody's to go on and be wowed about the fact that Bane has lasted so long in that hole, they're like, well, man, like, if he's been able to last that long, so can we. So honestly, they're starting to see Bane as this messiah, as this person to idolize, because they're like, man, like, he's stronger than all of us combined. So now Bane gets a really short haircut, and I was almost kind of very confused about if this was either Bane or not, for how different he honestly looked. So, so the warden comes in and is to be like, well, if anything, we need strong men to go on and do uh, this experiment that the government has created, and so if anything, uh, this is to make soldiers more than just a mortal man. So eventually the warden goes on to explain about this serum is to eventually be called Venom, and they put it through Bane's bloodstream. And so they're hoping if Bane survives this, that this would bring back their place to a more so glory. And as Bane goes on and goes through this injection, and eventually he flatlines, the warden is like, oh, well, I guess not. So he walks away. Then all of a sudden, the flatlining goes into giving back a heart rhythm again. And they're like, oh, well, I guess it does work. All of a sudden, Bane's body becomes more and more larger and has veins more pop out of every muscle and every portion of existence of this character's body, to the point where it's freeing himself because of just how large his body is becoming, to free himself from these shackles and eventually start attacking these soldiers. And while all these bullets are to be shot at him, the bullets all bounce off. and Bane kills them all. He rips a skull and spine out of one of them, and as the warden grabs for his pistol, eventually Bane breaks the arm of the warden, and then the warden is to desperately ask for him to live, and Bane goes on to say, it's like, well, you don't know what it means to live, and it's not a right, it's uh, a prize you must win. And Bane is to thank the warden because he's been taught how to survive and how to embrace the darkness. And honestly, I don't know what it is with always Bane having to quote like darkness and light, because if you also remember the Dark Knight Rises movie, Bane ends up going to the whole quote of um like, I was born in it, I was molded by the darkness, to when I was to finally have seen the light, it was just an annoyance to me. Like, we always have that quote of the darkness being used in every iteration of Bane somewhere. And it's kind of cool to see it also being used here, to where every time I'm like, yeah, darkness. So, the darkness and the light being used. So, the warden asks what Bane is, and it's like, well, hey, don't you know? You told me I was a demon. I was an abomination. And so Bane goes on and pokes the eyes out of the warden and kills him that way by crushing his skull, and then further makes his way out of the prison and murders and brutally kills all the security guards, and then frees all the prisoners and makes his way out. So now we cut to Bruce talking to his therapist, that is to be Chandra. So it's so interesting because I haven't really seen Bruce go into much therapy. I'm sure there probably is a lot more stories of this happening. I know that there was one story where I think Bruce did go to like Doctor Strange for probably therapy, and because I think there was some therapy things in like Batman the Animated Series, where at some point, like it was almost revealing that Bruce Wayne was Batman at a point in time, while he was in a therapy session. I think is what happened. But anyways, so Bruce is not caring much about this therapy. If anything, he really wants to get back to work, and so let me pause here for a second. I lost my place. So, considering this doctor, Chandra, is about healing, asking about what has Bruce been doing to really try and heal himself, either his body or his mind. And Sandra goes over where the Robins are now, going on and talk about how Grayson had left, and how also Jason Todd had died, and also how Bruce has Tim Drake. And so we don't have a Damien yet, because of course we don't. I'm kind of happy that we don't have Damien, because I never really liked Damien, in all brutal honesty. I think we've done enough with Damien at this point. Like, it's kind of a nice change of pace to stay with to Tim Drake with this one. I know a lot of people could love Damien more so than any of the other ones. Like, I've never seen an iteration of Damien in the animated stuff that I actually liked. I also there were other certain kind of comic books, didn't like them either. Um, I don't know. I don't know what it is. But it's just kind of nice to have Tim Drake. It's a nice change of pace. But also with all these different kinds of Batman worlds and stuff, it's like it doesn't really matter anyways. Anyway, so uh So after Chandra is to start talking about all the Robins, Bruce Wayne is really here because he wants Chandra to help his physical issues. And also Sandra is to talk about how she feels that Bruce has some kind of mask that he puts on. And so Chandra is saying to Bruce is like, well, hey, like, I want to help you, but it doesn't really seem that you really want help. Uh like I want to know who I'm really helping here. And like it seems that you're just kind of going on and feeling that like this is a waste of your time. So Bruce Wayne goes on and pays for the session and then leaves. And so as Sandra has Bruce leave here, she goes on and says, like, well, hey, you need to think of the thing that actually gives you hope, Bruce. Because it seems very obvious to me uh, that you don't seem to see it right now. And so if anything, it's blatantly obvious. Like she goes and she says, like it's blatantly obvious from your personal tragedies that you're working out your traumas you experienced as a young boy by helping others. But if anything, you're not letting people help you in return. So uh so if anything, Bruce is seeking out a weird messiah complex, and something's going to break with Bruce at some point. So now we get all past that dialogue stuff that I always trip over and now figure out what to say here. So now we make our way to Arkham Asylum. So we have this prisoner guard that is going on and hearing the rustles of things and is very unsure if it's a guy named Stan. And when he finds out that it's not a guy named Stan, because Stan is dead, eventually he'll come to find out that instead is actually Bane that appears in front of him with this explosive that eventually goes off. So Mad Hatter is going on and saying that he will have his tea party very soon. And so Bane goes on and makes his way to the furnace part of this Arkham prison and detonates this explosive. The next thing we see is Batman and Robin in the Batmobile racing to their next case because Arkham has now gone on to be at a much higher threat than it has been in quite a while. So Robin is telling Batman to slow down, and it's not just about his driving. Robin is saying that Batman is already pushing himself, and 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 Batman is kind of giving us the information of what's been going on lately with all the inmates escaping from Gotham, and that's the reason why he's been pushing himself. And Robin is just like, well, hey, like, but we have guys like John Paul, and also like Tim Drake exists, and Batman goes on to tell Robin, it's like, well, hey, John Paul is to be a bomb that needs to be diffused right now, so we can't actually use him in the field. And that's why he's right now in the cave having Alfred kind of look over him. and we have a chance to help him, so we might as well take that chance. So we then cut to a place called Tennell Estates. So weirdly enough, the thing that I don't get here is Batman gets out of the Batmobile and tells Robin to stay in the Batmobile. Just surveillance the place around and don't do anything. Seriously, you're gonna go on and have Robin just stick into the car and do nothing? That's not Robin's play. Robin never goes on and never does that. Robin never goes on and never listens to Batman. Hence why by the end of this piece, Robin fires Batman, or Batman fires Robin. So Batman tells Robin to just take out a drone and just surveillance the place. So that's what Robin does. So Mad Hatter is throwing this table party, and the main course of the menu is to be a kitchen knife. So the Mad Hatter is to explain to everybody that sits at the table that there's a knife in front of them, that everyone had a hand in sending him to Gotham. So if anything, it's time for them to have a hand at killing themselves. So these knives would be put to every one of these people's jugulars, and then Batman comes into the frame here. So Mad Hatter offers Batman a cup of tea, and Batman explains to the Hatter that his party is over. So the Mad Hatter goes on and lets his hatted men face off against Batman, and one by one he starts to go on and slowly but surely starts to take them all down to the point to where their hats start to fall off on each one of them, eventually having them start to be confused about where they are or what they've done. So there is to even be one guy that like flies and almost jumps on Batman, and Batman goes on and just takes him down onto the ground. It was a pretty cool sight to see this guy just flying out of nowhere. So after all of these hatted men end up losing their hats because Batman starts to figure it out how like all these are people who are being mind controlled by these hats. So all of a sudden the Mad Hatter is getting bored, so he just whips out a machine gun. And all of a sudden Robin comes flying out of nowhere and takes out the Mad Hatter, takes his staff and starts attacking the Mad Hatter. And Robin says, "Oh yeah, I thought you would need some help." It's like, well, hey, you didn't really listen to what Batman had to say, but if anything, Robin is just like, whatever. Like, I helped you out. So now we come to find that Azrael, or I guess Valley, is in a sensory deprivation tank, and while he's sifting in this thing, so imagine this is a tank full of water, and he's just laying in it, and he has these like visions, and and he's trying to figure everything all out. So Alfred finally pulls him out of the sensory deprivation tank, and so Valley is to mention about how he has been doing a lot better than the prior time being in this tank, and that if anything, Alfred is to say that Valley is actually making some pretty good progress, and like he's really proud of him. So as Azrael is trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together of what happened to him to lead him to this Azrael-like character, because he doesn't remember anything before Azrael, and before the Order of Damas, uh, he doesn't really know who he is. And so Alfred goes on and says that Valley has been a guy that has been abused, and so what they did to him is something that they're going to try and fix now. So in that Azrael just needs time to heal and recover. So, and also that every Englishman, all he needs is just a cup of tea. Like, man, they just went from the Mad Hatter with the whole tea thing to now Alfred giving this guy a thing of tea. So, as Batman and Robin drive in with the Batmobile, Batman is going on to Robin about how he disobeyed him and how Robin didn't follow orders. It's the same thing. So, if anything, Batman now is asking Robin to figure out how that explosion at Arkham had all happened and to go through the computers with Azrael because it seems that he has skill in that to go on and figure that all out. At some point, they won't be able to go on and do anything on the computer. They'll have to actually go on the physical site themselves to figure out that there is to have been a plastic explosion. That eventually they'll come to find that they need to go to Franco, who's the part to be one of the part of the five families, to talk to him all about it. So Alfred is going on and telling Mr. Wayne or Batman that at this point he really needs to sleep. And in Batman is to say it's like, well, I'm sure the people who escaped from Arkham would love that. But if anything, just not right now. And so Batman goes and tells Robin, radio if you find anything, and so as Batman looks off, Tim and Alfred start talking about like, well, hey, Tim, it's like just take it easy with Bruce. Like if anything, like he hasn't been sleeping, so like that's the reason why he is the way he is right now. So Alfred is telling Tim, it's like, well, hey, like if anything, once Bruce does finally get some sleep after all this settles, then like the two of you will be out there and you'll be on patrol and everything will be fine. Tim is saying that Batman is going nonstop and he needs his rest. And Alfred's like, well, you're right. And so if anything, there's also the thing about Tim still having a father, because in most cases they would write Tim Drake's father out of being killed. At some points, I think there's a story where Tim Drake goes on and makes his way back home to find his father dead in a fridge or something. I think that's a part of some Tim Drake story, from what I remember. Um, but yeah, like at some point, Tim Drake's dad dies, and that's when Bruce completely adopts Tim. But I guess that's not a part of the story. If anything, now they're talking about how Tim is going to go on and come up with excuses for why he's working late. So Tim starts to go on and grab equipment, and it doesn't seem like he's going to go on and do the computer stuff like Bruce told him to. So Tim is going to go on with a piece of equipment and actually go physically to Arkham himself and see what happened with the explosives, and is actually taking Azrael along because he can't drive. So So we come to find out that Batman's next case is to go up against uh, Zaz, Victor Zaz, a guy, if I haven't said already, a guy that was used in Arkham, but I think he was kind of an extra character. Like at some point, I think he was a prisoner in a cell that you can have a little bit of dialogue with. But like, if anything, let me pause here for one sec. Let me get a. I realized 55 minutes in, we haven't made a lot of headway in this movie. Of course, we haven't. So Zaz is now to hold a bunch of women hostage, and Commissioner Gordon is sitting on a perimeter, and also Harvey Bullock is also there. Man, it's so crazy how after Batman the animated series, how Harvey Bullock came such still a prominent character. Every once in a while, they don't have Harvey Bullock, and it's just Commissioner Gordon that they focus on, but they bring in Harvey from time to time, like Gotham and Commissioner, like they were partners, and man, did they really focus on the two of them. But anyways, so Renee Montoya comes in. A lot of times they call her Montoya here, but I'll call her Renee because it's a lot easier for me to remember. So Renee starts talking to Commissioner and asks like the Commissioner Gordon, it's like, well, what are we waiting for? And Gordon's like, well, I'm not going to send men in there. Like, it'd be too risky. And so Renee is like, oh, so we must be waiting for your vigilante friend. And Bullock is to say, it's like, well, we could wait for the SWAT. But so like Renee says to Commissioner, and this is a big line here, where it's like, well, hey, we're paid to be put in harm's way. Why are we going in there? And it should be up to us to save these people. And here's where Gordon hits Renee with this. It's like, well, there's a difference between what we do and what Batman does. And so, like, if anything, for Batman, like, yeah, he's a lot less messy than the police, it seems. Uh, so so Gordon goes on and says that he's not here to fight crazies like this. If anything, he always leaves it up to Batman. And so the only thing really left for them to do is set up a perimeter. And so Renee goes on and slinks up this ladder, goes into this window, and starts to see that this janitor has a cut through his throat. Here's where Zaz is going on and grabbing onto this woman and calling her a zombie and saying how she has to prep all the time to put makeup on her face and how much energy that must take and how pointless that is. Uh, and how he's there to free her from her meaningless life. And then all of a sudden, Renee comes in and Zaz is saying, like, well, hey, don't come any closer. I'm going to make this woman smell a lot whiter. And eventually, Renee comes in there and she's swapping to take over for the hostage. And it's like, well, hey, like, I'm willing to have you take me instead. And Renee, and so Zaz is like, oh, a hero, I see. So Renee goes on and puts her back to Zaz. So Zaz goes on and throws the woman and then grabs onto Renee. And so shortly thereafter that, Batman comes bursting through the window, and so Zaz ends up talking to Renee and says, "Hey, look at him, zombie. Uh, he's just like me. He doesn't kill." Uh, and so they talk about how tired and weary Batman looks, and how Zaz is to also talk about how long before he gives in to his darkest desires. So Renee goes on, and I think she elbows Zaz and separates her from him, and so Zaz runs away. And so Batman turns to Renee. It's like, you have the hostages, right? She goes on and takes over as Batman starts fighting off with Zaz. Batman starts to get cut in the arm by Zaz, and eventually Zaz ends up calling Batman a predator. So as they continue to fight, eventually Batman gets Zaz down, starts beating him, beating him down, and that's when he just can't stop. Eventually, Renee comes in and desperately asks for Batman to stop, asking if Zaz is dead, and he's not. Zaz is talking just like me. Renee goes on and tells Batman, if this is how you help, you're no better than they are. So, as Batman leaves and grapples away, we then have Commissioner Gordon come to the scene and ask Montoya what happened. And Montoya is telling Gordon that Batman is losing control. So now we cut to to Robin and Azrael. I know that he's Valley and he's not in the costume anymore, but he's kind of in a stealth version of Azrael's costume, anyways. Uh, they also talk about why he's having that costume, and he's like, well, Tim Drake is like, well, we have to kind of protect your identity. So Azrael asks what Robin is doing in Arkham, and he's just looking for evidence. So there is a bit of detective thing going on in the story here. So as Tim Drake starts to make his way through Arkham, he realizes that there was a gas explosion, and if anything, eventually as they further uh, head to where everything um, was to be the center of the explosion, eventually they get out this device that it seems that Azrael knew what exactly it was. It was a spectrometer, because they'd also found the detonator of the explosion. So they took a bit of um, explosive residue, put it in the spectrometer, and it went off to where they could figure out that it's a plastic bomb, and that if anything, they immediately knew exactly where to go to get this kind of explosives, and they knew who exactly to come to, and they'll go to Franco and they'll start questioning him about it. And so Tim goes on and tells Azrael that he appreciates that he went with him here. It's like, well, it's better than midterms. So Tim mentions about how a couple of weeks ago a member of Franco's crime family had used these same kind of explosives on an armored car. So he knows exactly where to go. It's to go on to another field trip, because they talked about a field trip before. As Tim and Azrael leave, there's Bane off in the distance to have heard everything that they were going on and doing. So now we make our way to the Riddler, who is speaking to a couple of his henchmen, and the henchmen are asking Riddler if he has another riddle that'll make them rich soon. And so the Riddler goes on and does this riddle of why was the Loud Hunter mauled by the prey? Because it didn't shut its trap. Saying that if the Riddler was to go on and act here, that maybe he would go on and put his foot in his mouth. So, because Riddler realizes that there's something else going on out there, and he doesn't want to be in the middle of it, and there's something that he's trying to find the answer to, and then all of a sudden, both of Riddler's henchmen ends up getting killed simultaneously, and all of a sudden, as Riddler turns, Bane is to give Riddler this injection, and so Bane is telling Riddler that he wants to have Riddler figure out what his true strength is, because if anybody needs strength, it's the Riddler. Because this guy is to go on and always be the guy that is to be the guy that has to think his way out of things instead of being the muscle. So if anything, we're going to change all that. So now we cut to Batman, who is at this convenience store in one of these aisles that is facing off against the ventriloquist and Scarface. Scarface starts blasting away with his Tommy gun at Batman, and eventually Batman goes on and takes out and separates both ventriloquist and Scarface with this batarang. All of a sudden, Scarface goes on and pops back up and tells Batman that he's really losing it. And then so Batman starts thrusting into his eyes and just be like, man, like I really am getting hallucinations going. Honestly, for me, I've really been pushing myself a lot lately also, to the point to where I've gone on and really been hurting my eyes and really going on and really getting to a point where I'm really pushing how far awake I should be to do all these projects. So I'm really pushing myself to the absolute breaking point also. Uh, but I'm trying to do the right projects, hopefully at the right times, because it seems that it's actually doing well for the channel. So I'm just like I'm really hoping that the hard work that I do now um will really benefit me later. So to where I won't have to go on and won't have to really push as much as I am doing now. And at some point, I'll be able to get to a point where I can get back to where I was at on the other channel, where yeah, I'd have days where I could kind of relax more and be able to do research more and be able to uh, get my workouts in. Because I miss doing those. I just pushed last night to just do 2 hours of cardio just so I can get some exercise in because I just miss it so much. So honestly, like, if you guys at some point just don't see me for a day or two because I've been pushing this so often, like, it's probably because I'm either finally doing something for myself or I'm finally getting exercise in, and I'm finally just going to go on and finally just start to rotate in exercise to just be like, well, hey, like, I finally want to get this in because I really want to go on and like, I'm really starting to see how, like, I'm really starting to kind of let myself go and I don't like it. So anyways, so now we cut to the GCPD that are firing off pistols against Mr. Freeze of all things. And so Mr. Freeze is blasting this freezing gun to put a wall against him. And then all of a sudden, Batman shows up from behind Mr. Freeze. And so as Freeze goes on and uses his freezing gun, there is all of a sudden this explosive of this fire hydrant that goes on and freezes Mr. Freeze. Because it goes on and has it kind of come back at him. So Batman's next feat is for him to face off against Catman. Yeah. So so Catman is going on and fighting Batman, and he realizes that he finally gets one over on Batman, and he's so proud about it. He's like, "I got him! I got the Batman!" And then all of a sudden, Batman goes on and is to uh, basically put this whole like bitted netting or whatever around Catman, and then push him down. So next up is be Firefly. So Firefly is flying in the air, and Batman is tackling him, wrestling with him, and then eventually, uh, Batman and Firefly go smashing into the ground. And as Batman starts to walk away, Bullock and Renee are saying how bad Batman looks, and so next up is the Batman facing off against Scarecrow. So Batman is chasing off against Scarecrow because we know that Scarecrow isn't all that. He's not a menacing character. He really is. Man, I would love it if Scarecrow had a yellow lantern, because if anything, that was kind of the changing of the tide for that character. That was kind of an interesting thing. That was like, ooh wow, I wanted to have a comic book where Scarecrow got the yellow lantern, and I think that did happen somewhere. Um, but yeah, so like I wanted them to figure out how to make Scarecrow like the games did a really good job at trying to make Scarecrow a bigger threat. But yeah, still in these comic books, they still haven't quite figured it out yet. Like all he has is just the fear toxin, and man, if Batman ever figured out a way to best that whole fear toxin thing, Scarecrow would be nothing. He really would be. So Scarecrow uses the fear toxin, and then all of a sudden, Scarecrow appears to Batman as Jason Todd, and so Jason is saying to Batman, "You got me killed. Uh, you'll get Tim killed, and also you'll get Valley killed. You'll get Alfred killed, and this city will be a lot better off when you're dead." And Gotham is suffering. So Batman finally understands that this isn't real, punches Robin, and Scarecrow goes flying. So after Batman's chest has been sliced into by Catman, and Batman has a number of injuries. One that he needs sewing because his arm is cut into because of the knife of Zaz. Here's where Here's where Batman is at his breaking point, to the point to where he's calling Chandra. And so he's calling her within the Batmobile, and so Bruce says to Sandra, it's like, well, I'm tired, Sandra. And so Sandra's like, well, hey, I'm willing to help you, but you need to give in to say that help is really what you want. So Sandra says that I know that your work is important, but you're running yourself ragged. And I think it's time for you to finally realize that you need to slow down. So Bruce is saying that he thinks that he has to go, and he drives off. So Batman runs to this clock tower and is to face off against none other than the Riddler. So Batman is to find that there is a bomb connected to this watchtower that's going to go off, and he's facing off against the Riddler of all people, who has become more muscular and more of a threat to Batman. So Batman is asking what the heck happened to the Riddler, and the Riddler is saying, it's like, well, the answer that I can give you is not one that you're going to like. So as Batman starts to attack the Riddler says how he can't feel anything of what Batman is throwing at him. Just imagine when Batman is going to try and face off against Bane, how a lot of his punches and everything is not impacting Bane whatsoever, because he's going to be way more gigantic than Riddler is going to be. So Batman goes on to get choked by the Riddler, but then all of a sudden they realize that there's only so much time left on this bomb, and they have to scramble the heck out of there. So the Riddler leaves, and so Batman grabs the bomb, hucks it out of the clock tower, and explodes midair. So Commissioner Gordon is at the scene of the crime, and both Batman and Gordon meet. So Gordon asks Batman about Enigma, and that's the Riddler. And so Batman mentions that Riddler had run away, and pretty fast too. So Batman says how Riddler is way different than he's ever been before, that he's been hopped up on something. So Gordon asks if Batman is actually okay, and and the more that Gordon is trying to because Gordon is like, well, yeah, like I'm starting to find that like people are starting to have complaints about you, like so that's why I'm asking. Um, it's like you're a bit off your game. So Batman is say, or so Gordon is so like even though no matter how long they've worked for, like Batman is still not quite right. That if anything, like Gordon is like, well, hey, if you need to talk, like I'm here, but you're gonna disappear anyways, because that's you, Batman. So, so Franco is going on and eating this delicious steak that someone had made for him, and here's where Robin comes flying in with his staff, knocking away these guns, tying up Franco to go on and interrogate him. So Tim Drake is to go on and talk about the explosives that he had found in Arkham and where exactly do they belong to. As Franco won't give him much of information, Drake goes on and jabs the staff into Franco's throat, hoping to get answers that way. Azrael is kind of like Drake, like, man, like, you're going a little bit drastic there. And Drake is just like, well, watch and learn. So Franco does go on and talk about how there's a whole meeting of the five families that are all going to get together. Every one of them, of the five families, start to ask who was the one who had brought this meeting together, because normally the only time that they would meet would be during like holidays and Christmas and such like that. All of a sudden, one of the families gets grabbed and gets their neck snapped. Another family member goes on and gets grabbed and pushed into the darkness. Every one of these family members start dying, and Franco's to be the last one alive. And immediately Bane goes on and asks where the explosives are, and eventually walks away. Franco took what Bane was acting to him as a sign that Franco was the weaker of the family members, but also that Bane just thought that he was a lesser being than him. So all of a sudden, we now have Franco's security that comes in, and bullets start flying. So Azrael all of a sudden kicks back into gear, and he starts taking down all these guards. He comes flying out of flying against walls. He goes on and does all these things to take all these guys out. And then all of a sudden, Azrael kind of stops and he's like, oh, my hands are bleeding. What the heck is going on? So Tim goes on and is like, well, hey, like, wait a minute, like, are you okay? And Azrael starts to run away. So Tim Drake, after going on and talking to Franco for a little bit, goes on and runs back to Azrael and asks him if he's okay. And so Tim actually goes on and actually is happy what Azrael did. He's like, no, man, like, this time around you didn't actually kill anybody. Like, that was actually incredible what you did back there. And that the skills that you have can actually be used for good. And in that the deprogramming is actually working that they've been doing with him. So there is also to be this angel that has this like flame sword that's off in the distance that we see right after this. And I was like, okay. So that must be where Azrael goes to make his confessional later on. Anyways, so the next thing we see here, as we cut past this, is Bruce making his way to Chandra to speak with Chandra, and his arm is bleeding. Chandra asks Bruce what happened, and he said he had gotten mugged. And Chandra's like, don't lie to me about this. Like, I know that you just didn't get mugged. So if anything, honestly, Bruce could have gotten home and could have been sewn up by Alfred, because he's actually a medical. He's a marine. He's a soldier doctor. He's a medic. And also, we see later on that Alfred sews Drake up anyways when we see him later on. So yeah, so Alfred is a medical is a military doctor. So yeah, so I'm just kind of confused why Bruce didn't just go to Alfred. I think that it was just a wound that he thought that wasn't so significant to go to Alfred with, because all he'll do is worry about him. So as Bruce is coming to Chandra with this, Bruce is to say that he is to just be like, I don't know why I came you. If I could talk, that'd be great. Bruce is just unsure about why he came here to meet her, and if anything, all he needs is some paper towels and some tape, and he'll probably be okay. And Bruce is say that he'll pay for the time that he's here for, and Sandra's like, what? Like, no, like, so Sandra goes on and starts getting things and starts to try and bandage up Bruce the best she can. But then all of a sudden, as Bruce starts to get tired and starts to doze off and fall asleep, we then come to find that Sandra is to fall asleep right next to Bruce. So it's good that Bruce is actually getting some freaking sleep for once and for all. So Tim goes on to make his way to this map that leads him to this area that's restricted. And so as he makes his way through the door, he meets up with Bane. And Bane says, please come in and find out. So Bane goes on and is to take out Robin and tie him up. So eventually Bane's plan is to kill Robin have Batman find that Robin is dead, and then Bane and Batman fight one another. So that's the ultimate plan. So as Drake starts to wake up, Bane immediately tells him, it's like, don't try to play that you're still asleep. I know that you're awake, Drake. And so Drake goes on and says, you must be the man known as Bane. And so Bane is like, well, hey, you're the detective. You can tell me. Like, also, you can tell me what my plan is by looking around, because you're asking me that. It's also quite interesting how Bane goes on and tells Batman how he's the greatest detective, but he couldn't say Bane coming at all. I love that quote. So, Tim deciphers that Bane had killed 4 out of the 5 of the crime families, and that he took their explosives, and so Bane's probably next plan is to try to destroy Arkham. Or no, wait. Since Bane had already destroyed Arkham, Bane's plan was to get Batman very distracted and very weakened. So eventually, Bane's next plan is to start some kind of either war, gang war, or be hired by some rival mob. So Bane goes on and says that Drake deciphering of what Bane is going to do is not quite right, is not quite there. So Drake, while Bane is distracted, is use the R that's on his chest and try to take it off his chest and try to loosen his ropes that are on the chair that he's attached to. We come to find that a lot that Batman ends up getting tied up by ropes and stuff all the time, and he always has some kind of thing to get him out of all those. Plus, there's also certain times where he always has some kind of gadget on him that always gets him free of some kind of uh, thing that he's stuck into. He always has some plan. Like he either has some uh, like tiny chainsaw or some something that'll get him to to cut through the ropes and everything. Yeah, there's always the plan of that. So so Bane's plan was to figure out how to stretch out Batman so thin uh and then break him after that. So Bane wants to or no, so Bane goes on and says to Drake that Bruce Wayne has been crippling the city, and eventually, as Bane was in prison, eventually when he came to Gotham many years later, he was surprised about how different it was from the stuff that he knew about Gotham. How he would wonder about how Bruce's father would feel about how Gotham has turned into now, knowing that his son uh, has made the city go the way it has, and how Bane is deciding that he wants to fix the city and not let it perish to the strong, but thrive by one of the strong, which is Bane. So So Bane wants to return Gotham to its greatness, and so as Bane makes his way to Robin, here's where Robin uh, flips from this chair, breaks away from it, and starts facing off against Bane. So Bane is to see the R. It's like, so that's how you got out of your ropes. So Robin writes off Bane as being crazy like all the rest of them, and Bane says you'll think that you'll be finding that I'm not like the rest of them. So Robin starts to run away and duck and dodge away from Bane because the main goal here is escape, not fighting, because Robin knows that he can't take this threat. He's too big. So Robin has to outsmart him and create distance. So Robin starts to roll away with all these pipes to create distance, and Bane breaks through them all. To where eventually Drake falls and falls uh to where there is this kind of this bridge to where now Bane and Drake are fighting on this bridge and they're kind of balancing on it. So Robin gets back into a corner and then he realizes that uh there is this kind of hanging bit of pipes that is just kind of dangling in the air. Robin goes on and throws this batarang, which I think Bane at first thinks that it was coming for him, but no, it's coming for uh, this line of pipes that is going to have cut away and then fall onto them, which separates both Drake and Bane just well enough for Drake to fall into this water and be washed away to get away from Bane. So Azrael goes on and makes his way to this church so that way he can confess that he is to remember of everything of his past, and it was all horrible. And how could I live knowing that there's something inside of me? Uh, all of a sudden, the priest starts talking. The Lord can take what it means for evil and turn it into good. What's inside of you is meant for something more. Your experience, skill, God can use those to help the world. By accepting your destiny, by becoming the knight, Saint Damas is willing to want to help you. So Azrael goes on and is like, wait a minute, you know about the Saint Damas? And then all of a sudden he runs into the other confessional room and finds that there's no one there talking to him. Azrael then turns to this altar and sees that he's getting surprised by this crusader that is to explain to him that he's being chosen to accept his destiny and he will become which he's meant to be. And so then we cut to both Bruce and Chandra, who have both slept on this couch, and Bruce wakes up to get a call from Alfred, explaining to him that Drake has been hurt. So Bruce makes his way back to the Batcave, and he's speaking with Drake. And Drake, getting sewn up, is talking about Bane and the fight that they had, about how he moves and everything like that. So Bruce is to be very upset because, again, Drake had not followed orders. And Bruce tells Drake to stay here. And Drake says, like, well, no, you didn't exactly tell me that. So eventually Bruce gets more and more frustrated and wants to go on and fire Tim, clearly because he's not exactly following orders. And for Drake to get his things and leave. And so Alfred is going to go on and drive Drake home. And Alfred also tells Drake Bruce is just tired and he'll come around to things. He just needs time. He had just slept. Finally. Bruce had just finally slept. But he's still tired? Man. This guy really needs a vacation. So Tim tells Alfred that he doesn't think so. Yeah, because Bruce just slept. How much, like, maybe he didn't really sleep enough, but still. He slept at least maybe an hour, maybe a couple, I don't know. So Bruce goes on, looks at this mirror, and he breaks it for no reason. Like, maybe he's just frustrated by the fact that he's so just beat up. But also Bruce comes back into the mansion and tells both Alfred and Drake, it's like, you know what, guys, I'm sorry, was just tired, and you know what, I just took it out on all of you. All of a sudden, Bruce comes into what looks like a dining room and sees Alfred and Tim on the ground, and Bruce is like, oh my god, are they dead? All of a sudden, Bane comes walking in, and it's like, I sought you out, Batman. The son of Thomas Wayne, the boy of privilege, the boy of tragedy, and you're the weakness this town is drowning in. I intend to break you, then, and then so Batman goes on, puts on his cowl, it's like, well, give it your best shot, motherfucker. Like, come on! I'm Batman. Like, what do you got? So Bane pours in onto the venom in his body, and here's where he gets really massive. The biggest that he's been in only other video games that I've seen him were at the very big end of, like, he's like, maybe he's not as big as some of the other games where I'd go on and see that, like, he's like a freaking almost like Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. That's how big freaking huge he gets. But in this case, yeah, he's pretty massive. He's pretty jacked up. So here's where Bane goes on and says the line about the whole, like, you're the greatest detective, but you didn't see me coming. So Bane goes on and starts clocking Bruce through the mansion and tells Bruce that that Batman is a crutch that this city has been leaning on. And then now it's time. This city stood on their own. And so Bane starts to make his way through the mansion, and somehow Batman has vanished, and Bane is having a tough time figuring out where he is. It's like, you're hiding. You always hide. You hide behind everything. You hide behind a mask. You hide from the world, and even from the people close to you. Hiding from your own failures, and hiding from your destiny, from me. So eventually Bane will find Batman and eventually will fling him into the clock that thrusts him down into the Batcave and has him fall down the stairs. As Bruce tries to get back up, struggling through the Batcave, we see Bane that's like thrusting through every small piece of the Batcave because he's too big to fit through this. And Bane has dreamt of this day, and he dreamt of it and Bane talks about the strength that he sure knows that Thomas had, and that the empire that he had given for Bruce, and because of Bruce's lack of strength, that he couldn't save anybody. He couldn't save Tim, couldn't save Jason, couldn't even save his parents. Going on to tell him how Bruce had just watched his parents die, and eventually Bane grabs Batman, hucks him into all the costumes, and immediately the one he conveniently throws him into is Jason's costume. And now Jason's costume is in front of him. And so if anything, it's good that Batman is still alive just so he can see what he's become. To see what he's been allowing Batman of Gotham becoming. And so as Batman starts to throw out some batarangs because he's just so tired, Bane is like, "Oh, don't give me your toys. Fight me with your fists." It's like, there's no way that Batman is going to take you on with combat. Are you kidding me? No. So, if anything, Batman has to outsmart Bane right now. He can't go on, and he can't fight him at the same level. It's impossible. So, as as Bane grabs Batman by the neck, Bane says to Batman, "Death would only be the end of your agony and silence your shame. And if anything, Bane's only goal was not to kill Batman, was to just break him." And so that's when he goes on, puts him over the knee, breaks him. And so Bane comes to a top of a building for all of the GCPD to see, because there is an explosion going on in this building, and Bullock had sent the fire department out. So as Drake and Alfred get back up from their knocked out moment, Alfred goes on to ask uh, Drake if he's heard anything, because Drake is trying to call Batman and there's no answer. So all of a sudden, Drake and Alfred are also looking on at the news and seeing that Bane is now holding on to Batman. So as Bane starts to talk, Gordon thrusts out a floodlight so they can see Bane better. So they have no idea who Bane is, and so Bane tells everybody that they should be doing something that they haven't done in a generation, which is defend for themselves. And so Bane hucks Batman into the floodlight. And actually, that is a pretty crazy visual, because the floodlight goes on and shows the bat signal as a thing that these people have always been so known for shining out, needing help. And so, like, what good is that symbol going to be now? Now that this Batman that they've called out to is broken on it. So, as the GCPD fires on Bane and he walks away, Azrael appears out of nowhere. It's like, alright then. So, as Commissioner Gordon Bullock look on, and as everybody is very frightened about what's going to go on with their city, we now cut to credits as we see Batman on the symbol, and then the symbol goes and shines out to the sky. Thank goodness. I'm calling this one a wrap. Man, I really wish these ones were a lot shorter. I apologize. I suck at this. I went on and I went too much into the dialogue, because there's a lot of times where I never know the proper ways of reviewing these sometimes. Plus, also, there's a lot of times where things are new and I just don't do them that well. If I've gone on it and I've seen it plenty enough times, I can break through a better way of doing reviews. But there's a lot of stuff that's just new, where I'm just like, I only watched this once, so I'm just like, I don't know what to say or where to go with this. If I had to watch this multiple times, there's a better way I could break it down, but it's just like I try to do this as quickly as possible because it takes forever sometimes still to do this process the way I do it. So I hung on to the dialogue too much. My bad. But anyways, I thought it was a pretty good bit of dialogue, but this was a mistake. If anything, it's gonna be good because I'm gonna get this out. This will be probably a video that I'll just put out for today. I was actually gonna go on and actually put this out well before, so I could actually have this as an extra video. But I guess now I'm just stuck with putting this out as one of my just reviews for today. Or maybe I'll just I don't know. I don't know what to do with this one. Either way, I hope this one does well regardless. I hope people will find this one to be a way they can understand what's going on with this one. To find out if people like this or not. I guess this would be the main thing. But I'm gonna get the heck out of here because I know how long this one is already, and no one will probably care about watching this whole thing. But that's fine because if anything, this is an hour and 11-minute movie. So if anything, I can review these however I want. Um, but also I've tried to make these certain things shorter. But anyways, at least this will be another video. I'll I'll be like I'll be fine about putting this out because if anything, if I wasn't, you wouldn't see this video. But like, there are times where I just kind of second guess about how I put these things together. But I'm just like, well, if I try this one other time, uh, like I'm wasting my time doing a another cut of this just to get it out quicker when really I can just put this out and be done with it. Plus, also, there has been so many times where I've kind of redone things and redone reviews and stuff like that. So, uh, plus, getting this out will at least have it be done and I can focus on other things. So, goodbye, everybody. Bye, buddy.